Because the other thing I think that happens with anger, as with all emotions, there comes a point where it transitions over to something else.
Yeah.
You know, and this is still under the umbrella of anger, but it transitions over to like resentment. So when I talk with my clients about, you know, holding on to anger and like how tiring that can be, is that, you know, you kind of start off with like agitation, irritation, whatever, or some other feeling. It becomes anger. And then after that, it kind of transitions to resentment, then contempt, hatred, and then indifference. And once you get to indifference, it is really hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
Because you've gone to like, I have some sort of feeling and some sort of passion about whatever this thing was, to now like, I just don't care anymore. Welcome to the RePsychled podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
And Dr. Nichelle Wall. Welcome back to session 133, The Fatigue of Being Mad. Today's mood music is brought to you by DMX, and it is entitled Slipping.
So basically, what this session is going to be about is just being mad at the world. Like, you just mad because you got clothes on. Like, so do you two ladies believe people have a reason to be mad at the world?
For sure. Absolutely. Again, we've talked about this multiple times over, that, you know, anger usually is a secondary emotion. So I think there's probably something else sitting up underneath that. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now that would lead a person to feel that they have been overlooked, pushed aside, unheard, disrespected. And a lot of times those feelings are coupled with anger.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the problem normally comes when we think about anger is that the person is getting stuck in it. And so it's this heaviness. It starts to kind of branch out and connect to everything in their life. And, you know, that's essentially what we're talking about today. And if we don't work on that, it just really ends up hindering everything we do in life.
For sure.
I agree with both of you ladies, but I would add. So all of our emotions are healthy, but we make them unhealthy because of the behavior. So even anger is healthy. However, it becomes unhealthy because of the behavior. So if you're angry at the world, that's completely up to you. But how you handle that is up to us too, because you're infecting us with the anger.
Absolutely. You know, anger is such a feeling that it's like glue, right? Like once you put it out there, it's so much easier for the people around you to just kind of absorb that feeling as well. And it starts to really change the energy of whatever space you're in.
Exactly.
And then you have people that don't want to interact with you because, you know, because of what just happened. Your interaction with them.
Yeah, you're radioactive.
There you go.
Don't nobody want to touch all that.
Yes.
No Ninja Turtles here.
I agree. It is radioactive. I mean, it's just like it's a mushroom cloud that just goes, I'm going to touch you and I'm going to touch you. And now we going to be in misery together.
And that's non-consensual. We talked about that last month. Okay. We don't do that here.
And what you always say, Dr. Strickland, misery don't love company.
It loves miserable company.
There you go.
Yeah. What are some ways that y'all believe that getting stuck in your anger like impacts us, like physically, mentally, emotionally? What does that look like?
I think all of three you just said. But like specifically, I think one of the biggest things is blood pressure and heart disease.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can, yes, 100% agree. Like that face start getting red.
Yes.
All of a sudden you get hot. And it's like, sleep. You know, I think when you are holding on to that type of an emotion, it is almost impossible for you to get like good quality rest because your mind, your spirit, and your body are not all in alignment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Migraines
Oh gosh,
is definitely a major one. You know, your neural pathways are struggling. They're being attacked on all fronts.
And I would say eating, because a lot of times when you feel that type of anger, like it's like you just see red in everything.
Yeah. Just walking around chewing
Y'all remember
hard.
like on the Looney Tune cartoons where they would like turn and they would like hit, like the steam would come off their head?
That's real.
Yes.
That's what it makes me think about.
It reminds me, we talked about this movie before, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit and
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the cartoons, how they show their anger. That is a great
Inside
depiction.
Out, anger.
Yeah,
That's
anger was struggling.
yes.
Well, all of them was struggling.
Absolutely. You know, and I think another thing that when you get stuck in that feeling, what happens is you start to lash out at people or withdraw. Like either way, it's going to affect you socially. It just depends on the way in which you normally kind of display your emotions, on whether you're going to externalize it and lash out, or you're going to internalize it and, you know, kind of self-deprecate. But I think it definitely affects you socially and for a long time.
Yeah. I think there becomes a level of paranoia that sits in, because you're always like, somebody gonna do something to me, or this is gonna happen like this, to where you actually end up stunting your own growth and your own development. Because when we see, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, when we see angry individuals that are stuck in their anger, it's like dealing with an adolescent.
It is.
I'm like, oh, so we just gonna react to everything. You're not gonna emotionally regulate yourself at all.
Right.
Okay, that's what we doing.
I would agree.
Yeah. And I think that's how we have a lot of people that have road rage, because they just find anything to be angry about. So it's you. That's why I say we are impacted by your anger.
Yes.
Yeah. Another physical one that we talked about when we discussed anxiety previously was having stomach related issues, ulcers, gastritis, just different things that pop up, indigestion, acid reflux,
Tightness. Get that tightness in the chest.
Yeah.
Miss around here think you having a heart attack.
Yep.
And all it is you just upset.
and refuse to emotionally regulate. What about some of the emotional sides of anger? What do y'all see?
So I tend to have the people that I have this anger. I tend to we gonna go back down that ladder, that emotional ladder. We're gonna go back down, and a lot of it is that they're hurt. They were embarrassed. They felt rejected or disappointed.
Yeah, the one I would add in there is disrespected. That's another one people tend to fly off the handle real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say emotionally, one of the things that I see with people that have a lot of anger is that they struggle with how to communicate whatever it is. You know, they know that they feel something, and they know, like, kind of like you were saying, going back down that ladder. I know I feel something, and this isn't the only thing I feel, but it's the only thing I know how to feel.
Yeah. And or they don't know the primary emotion, and so they don't know, and sometimes they don't even know why they're angry.
Yeah. I think people have to learn that there's a difference between awareness, identification, and then processing of what's going on with you. All three of these things are necessary, but a lot of times people can only do one of the three, and you really need all three of them to be able to work through everything you're experiencing in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I always tell them to, because sometimes people want to look at like the present as to why they're angry, and that's fine. You can look at the present, but if you don't find anything in the present, then go back, because a lot of times when, like I said, when we talk about the primary emotions, you don't understand why what you're feeling primarily, because what you're feeling or why you're feeling that way, it didn't come from today.
No, today was just a trigger.
Exactly.
Yes. It could be stuff from years.
Yes.
Birth.
Years ago. Because holding a grudge is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's unintentional. You know, a lot of the trauma and the different things that we have just normally experienced or commonly experienced it's not always something that we said, I'm going to hold this grudge for the rest of my life. Sometimes it is forced upon us and we just didn't have the tools to work through it. And now that we're adults, we have to find these tools or we going to be messed up for the entirety of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
And who got time for
And
that?
And that's sad. Because the other thing I think that happens with anger, as with all emotions, there comes a point where it transitions over to something else.
Yeah.
You know, and this is still under the umbrella of anger, but it transitions over to like resentment. So when I talk with my clients about, you know, holding on to anger and like how tiring that can be, is that, you know, you kind of start off with like agitation, irritation, whatever, or some other feeling. It becomes anger. And then after that, it kind of transitions to resentment, then contempt, hatred, and then indifference. And once you get to indifference, it is really hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
Because you've gone to like, I have some sort of feeling and some sort of passion about whatever this thing was, to now like, I just don't care anymore.
And you know what? When I was working at the rehab in Arizona as the family counselor, a lot of the family members that I would call had gotten to indifference. And that's why a lot of them got to the point of oblivion, because it was like, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Oh, but it is. I can hear it in that tone.
Yeah. Because I think even in that, you have two sides. You have the one where you just kind of letting any and everything happen. And you have the side where it's like, nothing like that will ever happen again. And you really have to be somewhere in the middle of those two to understand what's going on, put proper boundaries and stuff in place. You know, whether you're on the receiving end or you are the one inflicting the anger.
And I think on those two opposite spectrums is how people become unhealthy. Because if it's, I'm never going to let this happen again, then you have a wall, not a boundary. You have a wall up. And you don't let anybody through that brick wall.
Oh, yeah. It's like Fort Knox.
But then if you're on the other end, it's like you have poor boundaries. And so now everybody can you're just like what you call it?
Doormat?
Yes. What? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was like a rug. No, it's not a rug.
Doormat. They just step all over you and rub the dirt all in you.
Yes.
And we don't want that.
No.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, emotions can be draining. You know, I think that's one of the reasons why people try to avoid them so much, is because diving into a feeling, and especially one you've been having for quite some time, it is hard to peel back a lot of those layers and acknowledge your own contribution to why you feel the way you feel, as well as give responsibility to the other people that influenced and contributed to what you feel.
And you don't know how to feel without it anymore. You don't know how to live without it, depending on how long you've been dealing with it.
Every emotion that we have has the potential to overwhelm us. And it's not until you get familiar with your emotions and identifying, aware, and processing that you realize, okay, I can feel it and I can move on. Like, you shouldn't be stuck in any emotion, no matter how good or how bad it may feel to you. They're just there to let you know something is going on.
Yes. Indicators.
Yes. Yeah. And the purpose of like processing your feelings is not for you necessarily to feel the opposite of it. It's for you to be able to understand that you're human and that you can experience life regardless, because I was telling a client today, we don't walk around like this all day.
I don't walk around like that ever.
Right. We don't walk around like that, you know? So you're going to have some joyful moments, some sad moments, some motivating moments, just all the different emotions. You're going to have all those moments. So just because you have a negative moment or a negative thought and a negative feeling that comes from that thought, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm so depressed. No, you had a sad thought and a sad moment. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between, and I think that's something that people don't, since I know we're not talking about depression, but that is something that people struggle to know the difference between sad and depressed. and then depressed and clinical depression.
Right.
Them are three vastly different things.
Yeah. It's levels to this. Y'all know we tell y'all that almost every week. There are levels to everything you experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, y'all have any final thoughts? Get it together.
Get it together.
Check your emotions.
Check your emotions.
Not the soundtrack for the podcast.
I'm the hype man.
We need a little bit of that. Look.
Oh, but side note, y'all, we promise we are going to let y'all know who won the gifts.
Yes.
We just keep forgetting, so we're gonna let y'all know this week. We promise.
Yes.
Charge it to our head, not our heart.
Please.
Okay. Well, y'all know we always end off with a quote.
Today's quote comes from Amy Poehler. I am tired of being tired and talking about how tired I am.